Hello and welcome back to another episode of this ridiculous application I'm trying to create. For some reason, I've got nothing better else to do with my free time. So without further ado, let's get right into this. So if you have tuned in to the last video I created on this topic, dev vlog or whatever, you'll maybe notice that there's some things that weren't originally present on that first video. So this is the application we're attempting to make, and again, for anyone that hasn't viewed the last one, it's just an information management application. It's supposed to make tedious tasks a lot more streamlined and quicker for you to get from inception to resolution. One thing that we did have in the previous video, or the only thing we had in the previous video, was just one kind of monolithic application, and it was very basic. It did allow us to drag and drop files onto the application, and the application's aware of that, and it moves those files to a temporary data folder or a saved data folder. So it manages the handling and the movement of those files for you. So you don't have to think about it. Now, bear with me as I just pull up some of the notes. I have been playing around and experimenting with different ways to implement new features. And I have more or less just been throwing whatever I can at the wall to see what sticks. So initially, this was essentially all we really had on the application, just a window where you could type your notes into the case manager, and that was pretty much it. Now it does save the information, and we add more notes, and more notes have been added. Ding. And that should be saved, and if we click on here we see it updates. And so that really is just this file here, a temp note in the temp data folder of the application. So from here, what I did is I added kind of like a window control panel, and if we open that up, and this was really so that I could, toy around with hiding and showing the case manager, which is really just like a text. It's just a text editor, really, at the end of the day. And also, implement some other things. ImGui is an intermediate GUI, I think it is. So limiting the refresh rate was something that became obvious I needed, because the application was driving up my GPU's resources. It was almost hitting 100% for such a low, a simple application, a simple looking application. And so we added some debug features. And although it's sitting around 500-ish now, FPS, the thing was shooting up to like 2000 or whatever. It was maxing out the graphics card. So we added some extra bits, some VSync, which kind of like halves the refresh rate. And some going further from there, it seemed obvious that we should have the ability to, target a specific frame rate. And this seems to work well all the way down to approximately 10 FPS, maybe 15 FPS. But what it really highlights here is how ImGui is this intermediate sort of GUI, and how it's much more like a game application aware or designed for. That's its target, I think I understand it to be. So yeah, it's just something for me to be aware of. Maybe there's some ways to counter that in the coding that I'm not really aware of yet. And if anybody's watching, maybe they might want to add some information to the video, just to let me know in the comments. So yeah, apart from there, we added, the the always on top option, because that just to me always seems like a real dope thing to be able to do with applications. For one reason or another, you might just have that need, and I find that that's something that I want sometimes. Opacity also, because if you're always going to be on top, sometimes you're going to want to see the information behind it, and I just, again, I find that to be something that's really quite useful. I won't go into all of these just yet, because this is more kind of like a dev update changelog type thing. But that's pretty much it. And yeah, I was just hacking around, seeing what I could do there with that. From there, one of the features that I wanted to add was like a method to track multiple devices that have, time that have time zones of a variety of time zones, because when you're working in tech support, well, I'm sure there's other roles out there where there's people who are in different time zones. Being able to track that on the fly is something that's really quite valuable. So we have a devices panel here. So specifically in terms of like tech support, sometimes you will have, I've got a little line on this here. Yeah, it gives the user the ability to see what timestamps they're looking for to correlate an event across multiple devices across multiple time zones. So yeah, it's important. It's an important aspect of tracing technical issues when more than one device is involved in the communication chain of different time zones. So maybe that makes sense. Maybe that sounds like I don't know what. But if we select add clock, we can see here we have the user system clock. We could just call it the let's give it a name. Let's call it the master, or let's call it the local system time. Okay. So the local system time, right now we're in British summertime or Irish summertime. So that's UTC +1. And if we add a device time, we could say a server time, and we could say that server is in the Americas, right, or in New York. It's UTC -5. That -5 hours behind us. And again, this is very rough, because depending on where you are in the world, you might have different time zones. Like some countries don't observe daylight savings, right? Those kinds of things. So it's thin on the ground right now, but it needs some fleshing out. And essentially, it just lets you track these different time zones for now. And as we can see here, if we change the time to say 8 o'clock, 8:20 and 13 seconds, let's pretend an event occurred. We see on the local system, that's the time that we understand, or our local time. We understand that that's when the problem occurred. And then on the server, because it's UTC -5, it would be 12:20, 13. And let's just say there is, let's call it the user system. Maybe there's a user somewhere else, wherever it's UTC -5. Or how about UTC +2? So maybe they're in CET summertime, CEST, which would be UTC +2. And we can see there that for me at 6:20, that would be 12:20 in New York and 19:20 in, say, let's say Germany. So that's all there is to that, really. From here, I also wanted to add a storage tool. Let's see. So a storage converter. Sometimes when we're working with files, we want to understand the size of a file, and we want to convert it right to something else, some other unit of measurement. So I did use the boost library because I just wanted to see what the precision looked like when we were using that. And if you don't know what the boost library is, it's just like a math type library as far as I understand. And it has some, functionality that allows you to get some real precise decimal numbers, that kind of thing. Whereas your regular computer clock and your regular, phone calculator or whatever, they tend to not have those. And we also set it up so we have the binary system, 1024 binary system, and the SI system. And I forget what the SI is, but it's just like base 1,000, right? Is that correct? Base 1,000. It's every 1,000. You round it up to the 1,000, and that's 1 unit. Binary, you have 1024, and that's 1 unit, right? So a gigabyte in the binary system is 124.00000 recurring megabytes. And yeah, it gets a bit funny with some of the numbers, but there you go. Very, very precise. Now, what else did I want? Yeah, and that was really just so that I can, perform those checks real quick. And it's all just a work in progress. The UI and everything still needs a lot of refinement. And we had some problems with the original Node editor because ImGui doesn't handle things like word wrap. I don't think, not very well in a multi-line text input anyway. And horizontal scrolling, it's not very. I didn't like how it worked. So I decided to look for some alternative implications or implementations. It's not the implications. It's not because of the implication. I decided then to implement ImGuiColorTextEditor, but I did run into some compatibility issues with that. It turns out that ImGuiColorTextEditor doesn't use a newer API in ImGui. Apparently, it's only compatible up to 1.89 of ImGui, whereas we're using like 1.91 of ImGui. And it was a little bit irritating, but I was able to implement a fix in the plugin or whatever it is we want to call the extension of ImGuiTextEditor. And I did see that there was a pull request to implement the same fix, but it does look like the project might be dead because that wasn't implemented. And there seems like there's some other pull requests as well. Not really familiar with all this coding stuff, but that's what I could figure out. That said, we did implement this new text system, and as you can see, it's much more like orientated for coding. It has the numbers on the line, and let's just take a look at this because I don't like how it looks. Text editor. So as we can see, we have added always on top. Always on top, turn off. We have added the ability to sort of change the colors and all that stuff. And that's just really because I wanted to experiment with things. And let's change this to white or something. And highlight, let's just say pink something. I don't know, purpley pink. So as you can see, we can highlight the line that we're on. But again, it doesn't have word wrap. It is like a single line text editor or something like that. It doesn't have that kind of functionality you might expect. It also is missing some other functionality that I would like to see, but it was just playing around with things. In any case, it doesn't. I don't think ImGui is the right choice for this project long term. And I don't think that the ImGuiColorTextEditor plugin is sufficient for my needs. It does lack some of the more advanced features that the project ultimately needs for future updates. And so from here, I'd also just want to highlight the last change that was added. So we did add a TreeNode, and what the TreeNode does is it just shows us the files that are relevant to our case. So when we open up the application, it opens a temporary data folder, or it uses a temporary data folder, which is this over here on the right. And if we open up, we see our temporary note text, and we don't actually need to come in here through the file explorer to manage this, or at least I want to avoid that. I want everything to be available through the application. So if we just double click, then it actually pulls up the temporary note file, and that's just a nice handy way of managing the data. And if we take a couple of screenshots of what we're looking at here, and we see here the screenshots are populating on my desktop with a timestamp. If I highlight these and drag them over onto the application, we see that the temp data gets updated, and we see here in the system's path that everything is working correctly. It's being allocated to this temporary data file that we're trying to create. And if we want to, we can open up those images with a double click. It's just Windows remembers the last screen that the application was opened on or closed on. So that's handy. Allows us to avoid having to look into our folders. And what I'll do is I'll actually leave open the temp data folder, and we'll take a look at the cases folder. And say let's just pretend that we've got around to the end of performing some of our discovery. We want to save the case, and we're going to give the case a name, and let's just call it the live YouTube vlog, dev vlog, and let's just say save. We should see now that number one, the folder name in the TreeNode is updated, and we still see the files that we need, and we still have access to them. But we also see that the temp data folder has moved the files into the case manager cases folder, into the live YouTube dev vlog folder, and here we see everything we need. And so we have the persistent temp, or the persistent note, which is the notes which are appearing. Case manager, come back. Case manager, small graphical bug, and we can keep adding information. And when we wait for the unsaved changes to save, we see that the persistent file is updating. And if we want to save the updated file, we also see that we now have another timestamped text file. 27, so we want the 28 version, which has the updated file notes. And if we open up the persistent, we see that the persistent still has the updated information, and we'll give that a second to autosave. Click back, and so now we can kind of see the power of these timestamped files and folders in case there's any data errors or loss of information and so on. So that is pretty much it for now. That is everything I really wanted to cover in this video, and thank you if you made it this long. 20 minutes, it's long. I'll try and cut them down, and yeah, subscribe if you like this, or if you're interested in how this project is shaping up and where it's going to go. Thank you.